You should ask the questions. We're not self-starting.
Oh my God. Well, the one thing I do want to, well, you told me that this film was made in 5.5 days. Think about that for a second. 5.5 days. So, what were was that because of budget or because you just had 5 days?
This film was made as it was made as fodder for a VHS release between two other movies that we were making. That was Commando Squad and a movie called Moon and Scorpio. And we'd finished Commando Squad, and Moon and Scorpio had been filmed, was deemed unsatisfactory, and was set to do some pickup days. And they didn't want to pay me what I thought I was worth to reshoot Moon and Scorpio. So I said, I'll take your equipment on the off days. And the off days, the film Moon and Scorpio, which was a Britt Eklund and John Philip Law movie, was going to shoot on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, something like that. So I said, okay, well, they picked up the equipment on Friday, and that would constitute a week if you returned it a week from the following Monday. So I said, oh, okay. So I had it Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and then I'd have it the following Saturday and Sunday, and I had to turn it back in. So yes, 2 weekends and the Friday night after I picked it up. So I decided I would make a movie with a little bit of money I had in the bank. And so I decided I would make Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers for a VHS deal I have with a company called Camp Video, who offered me $25,000 if I could make something they could have for VHS. And so I did it, and we picked up the gear on Friday, and I shot Friday night at my house, which was the baseball bat sequence. And I was telling Jay sitting there, I was watching that girl saw that guy up in the bathtub, and I said, Jay, I said, the cleanup on this was epic, as that was my bathroom. And they walked away, and they left this blood splattered all over my house. And we shot that Friday night, and then Gunnar shot Saturday and Sunday and went home. Then we shot Moon and Scorpio from Monday through Thursday or Friday on some boat off of Catalina or wherever. And then Saturday and Sunday of the next week, we finished the movie. And we came back, I think, for one evening, and we shot the bit where they drove around in a pink Cadillac, and Linnea had redone her hair, and she looks like she'd stuck her finger in a light socket, and her hair was completely fried, and she's telling them about her girlfriend whose head was found in a garbage can. And you look at her hair, and it's just all frizzed out. And that was done by Gary Graver, who was a cinematographer for only one night. And it was done very cheaply, and it wasn't really a planned film. It wasn't something that we really devoted our efforts to. We just kind of did it as a joke between Commando Squad, which was $1 million movie, and Moon and Scorpio, which was like a $300,000 movie. Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, we made it for 60 grand, you know, pocket change. And of course, no one's watching Commando Squad now.
No, you know, one of the things I loved about this film is, you all see Airplane?
Yeah.
Airplane was a great movie, wasn't it? Did you see Airplane 2? Stunk to high heavens. And the reason is because they didn't play it straight down the line. And that was what we loved about this script, is we knew how damn funny everything was. It was a silly, silly film, you know? And the logic of it went right out the window. So we just decided to play as straight as we could with a little twinkle in the eye, and it happened to work. You know, it's kind of a risk. You can risk on a small film like that and sometimes come up with big results, and that's kind of what we did. I'll tell you one thing. You saw the headbutt scene? Okay. That was the second take. The first take, when I headbutted her, I don't think our foreheads even made contact, and Fred said, no, it didn't look like you do it again. Try a little harder. So this time, boy, I really went way back, and bam, you can hear it on the soundtrack. That dull sound of two skulls coming together, you know? Yeah, she practically was, and she literally did go, and I carried her off, and I didn't know if it was, you know, part of the actor for real, and I, to this day, don't know if she was really knocked out. But she forgave me anyway, fortunately for that. But that was a great moment.
She was unconscious. And there are no extras in this film. Every extra in this film is a member of the crew. And you can see them. They're in the bar. All those guys at the bar, they're all crew members, including my 10-year-old son, Chris, who's at the bar with a martini and a cigarette. He's now, of course, a director who made Meth Gator recently for the Asylum. He's made Two-Headed Shark Attack, and they're all crew members. All the people in the bar where Linnea is dancing, they're all crew members. At the end, I swear to God, as God is my witness, those 3 or 4 girls that are in the temple scene were prostitutes. And they came in and we gave them, I don't know if we gave them $50 or $100, and they couldn't do anything right. We said, kill him. And some of them were saying, get him or kill him. And it sounds like they go, what are they saying? Kill him, or they couldn't say anything right. And then we went and they drank all of the crew beer for the rap day. All of the booze was gone, and these girls had drank everything we had, and they were like real hookers, because this was made at Movie Tech Studios, which was Lucky Brown's place. If anybody knows who Lucky Brown was, it was in the heart of Hollywood, and it was just everyone was real. The girl Trisha Brown, who was the fire eater, was the head of Hollywood Wildcats, which was a cat fight wrestling company. And she came up to us and she said, if you'll buy me some kerosene, I'll eat fire and set myself on fire for you. And we went, okay, and we scrambled around town until we found a can of kerosene, and she set herself on fire. And the girl who was the art director, Corey Kaplan, was very early in her career, and if you look her up, she was the production designer of The X-Files. And I think she went on to, maybe an Oscar for Chicago, but she became a very famous production designer, and she had a thing for the Queen of England. So she went and did this whole business in the Elvis scene, where she did this whole thing about how she didn't like the Queen of England, and the whole set where she put up the shower curtain over Elvis. And we had this record we played called Won't You Wear My Ring Around Your Neck by Elvis, because we heard we were going to get this song by a guy who sounded like Elvis. But Michelle, she kept hearing this song played on set, Won't You Wear My Ring Around Your Neck? So she's acting it out. She's pointing to her finger of where her ring is, and she's pointing to her neck because she's hearing the real Elvis song. Well, we didn't own that song. So we took the song out and put another song in, but Michelle's acting out this real song by Elvis. And you're looking at her going, what the hell's she doing? But that's I thought that was a good song. And we had no makeup effects. We went to Hollywood Toys and we bought fingers and arms, and we had a Hudson sprayer with blood-colored water in it. We just sprayed people off camera. I mean, we had no money at all to do this. We just had a weird sense of humor, and I didn't like the musical score. I hired a guy because he had done the score for a movie called The Deadly Spawn, and I liked it, so I hired him. Then I got the score and I said, I don't like it. So I took the score out and I covered it with rock and roll tunes that I had picked up from all over the place. So it's all these different songs, and then the guy put out a soundtrack album with music that isn't in the film, and we just rocked it that way.
All right. So, on the chainsaws, for the chainsaw fight.
Some of the chainsaws you can see, but you put that in somebody's face and it's a running blade. I mean, where the girls run out of gas and Jay's tied to the bed and you see the saw come in, yeah, that's running. And it's fairly scary. You know, I did that in Deep Space too, where the blades were real. But when they're fighting a lot, they took the blades off and then put a rope on there that had it was frayed so that it would vibrate and it would look like it was running. So sometimes it's real, and then sometimes it's a hemp rope that's been frayed to make it vibrate and look like it's real, because it was pretty scary. If you look at the temple set too, the sarcophagus is from the movie Vamp, and it has Grace Jones's face on it, and you can see it. If you stop and look at it, you can recognize that it's Grace Jones. And the temple set itself is from the movie House, or House 2, one of the ones with John Ratzenberger, where he looks in and he says, "You got your basic Aztec temple going on here." That's the set from House. And we rented it, and we set it up, and we rented the Grace Jones sarcophagus from the movie Vamp. But yeah, the chainsaws that were buzzing around in there, because sometimes they would stop right on frame, and so you had to see the blade. But that's pretty frightening. And they were pretty big. And the ones inside the sarcophagus for the dance, one of them would run, and the other they couldn't keep running, which was actually pretty good, because she was high as a kite from the fumes. By the time the door opened, she was stoned, and she has that glassy look on her face. And she's so tiny that she got high in a hurry. And she has this body paint. And Dawn Wildsmith, who was my wife at the time, was wearing that blonde wig, and she was playing that kind of nutty character from the opening of the film. She was doing the makeup, and it was taking so long that Linnea's husband or boyfriend, Steve Johnson, who was a makeup artist, came down and started helping out, and they did this long makeup on her to do it. And then, but she's naked except for the thong that she's wearing. She's not wearing any clothes. And for some reason, Entertainment Tonight and Inside Edition and Hard Copy and all these TV shows ran a clip of her over and over again, basically topless in body paint, and didn't know it. And it had been on television for year after year at Halloween. They were running this sequence of series of video for doing that dance, not realizing that she was just wearing this body paint, which I got kicked off of Facebook for posting once.
What a great loss to be kicked off of Facebook. Yeah, you also, if you notice, she had 2 chainsaws for that dance, and she's so tiny. And those chainsaws were 25 pounds each or something, I don't know, but she would swing them around, and, you know, she's just, you think of how close they came to her body, and if they had connected, if the 2 arms had connected. And at the time we were watching it and just enjoying it, and we were so into the scene, you know. But afterwards, watching dailies or watching the first edit, we realized, good Lord, what if she had missed? What if she had dropped it on her toe or something? It's like,
On you.
or on me. Yeah, that's true. I was directly under her. But I never think about me. I think about her. Yeah, right. But she was such a good sport. She was wonderful, you know. She'll do all these sexy characters, but in reality, she's kind of a homespun girl, you know, and that's one of the reasons I think that she was so popular. You know, she was kind of a wholesome and innocent quality, don't you think?
Oh, yes. Well, Linnea was everybody used to compare her to Goldie Hawn. And she came up, and people say, "Oh, what's she really like?" And she came up to me one morning during this film, and she had Variety. Variety used to come out daily. And she had daily Variety in her hand. And she said, "Fred," she goes, "can you explain something to me?" I said, "What is it?" She said, "Look at this review they've written about this movie I was in. It was called Treasure of the Moon Goddess, I think. And it said, Linnea Quigley, who attempts to be like Goldie Hawn, who she resembles not one whit." And I looked at that, and she said, "What's a wit?" And I said, "You know what? Come back to me at lunchtime." I said, "And I'll explain it to you." But that's how cute she was. And she just kind of like, she didn't get it. And I don't know if I got it either, but we had a great time on this show. And she was the de facto star of this, but I would tell you this, the shot of Michelle Bauer wielding that chainsaw is one of the most iconic photos I think anybody's ever seen for a B movie. And it was done before we ever made the film. When I wanted to sell the concept of this, I hired Michelle and I hired Dan Golden, who is a still photographer who later became a director, to go up to the roof of a building. And I got Michelle the biggest chainsaw I could find and some lingerie. And I took them up to the top of a building and I shot these photos that don't appear in the movie at all. But I made an ad campaign before I went to try to sell the concept of the movie. And those photos are pretty iconic. I'm wearing it on a t-shirt right now, and I'm wearing it on a shirt from Japan right now. And if you think about it, Linnea is the star of this movie, but the photo of Michelle wielding this chainsaw is probably the image that more people around the world will associate with this film. And it's a pretty iconic photo, I think. Anything else, Jason?
So we've only got about 5 minutes left, but since I have both of you on the stage, I have to ask one last question. So you think about, Tim Burton has Johnny Depp, and John Carpenter had Kurt Russell there for a while. So I want to talk about the relationship between Fred, Olen, Ray, and Jay. You guys made some movies together, man. So
I think about 30.
is that all?
I can't remember.
So
Lost track after a while.
you use the microphone. Yeah. So where was the magic? What was the magic between you guys where they just kept going?
I think Jay and I met at Raleigh Studios. We had an office, and if you believe this, and you don't have to believe me, but if you've read my book, you'll know if I tell you something is true, it's true. I had an office at Raleigh Studios with George Edwards, the guy who made Frogs and Queen of Blood and all these movies with Curtis Harrington. And I had a little room in the front, and you had to walk through my room to get to George's room. And I paid $200 a month to be there. And I was next to Herman Cohen, the guy who made Trog and Conga and Horrors of the Black Museum. And the guy who walked in our office and watered our plants was named Kevin Costner. And he had dreams of being a movie star. And I was casting, and we cast through, what was that newspaper, Dramalog? And I never put the name of my movies in the Dramalog listing because I didn't want anybody to know what I was up to. So I always called it Lab 13. That was my title. I cast Lab 13. Jay came in one day to meet me because this was the day when actors would audition for you live. No video auditions. You would meet them live. He came in to meet me for Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. He came in, we talked, and I knew immediately no one else. I didn't need to see anybody else. And we talked, and we had a connection. We did this, and I don't know, you say maybe it was 30 movies later? We made so many films. It's unbelievable. I don't even know how many it is. We made Westerns. We did a sword and sorcery one where Jay was like fighting with swords. We were riding horses. And we were doing those things where we had the trained horse where you'd shoot the guy with the arrow and the horse would rear up and fall over on his side. And that was like the only time we ever did that. I don't know if we did submarine movies or aircraft disaster films. I don't know. We did everything. It's just so many. I can't even think of it.
In the early years, we averaged about 3 or 4 films a year. So, yeah. In the early years, we'd have about 3 or 4 films each year. And everyone was different from one another, but it was like a Fred, Olen, Ray rep company because a lot of the usual suspects would come back and work with us. And then you'd bring in, a name actor would come in to play a guest role and just shoot the hell out of him for 2 days and let him go. And then we'd do the rest of the heavy lifting from there, But it was hit the pavement running, man. One take only. Those early days, we were using 35 millimeter film, short ends, and sometimes, these were buybacks. And I think we had all the footage left over from Mark of Zorro, didn't we? I think that was one of them. And I said, okay, this is the scene where you got to come through the door, and then you got to exit later on. Jay, can you do it in 50 feet? Yeah, I can do it in 50 feet. Okay, so you got to come in, and at 25 feet, you better turn around and walk out because that's all we got.
And actually, you didn't speak any English. Yeah, that's right. We did one with Paul Naschy, and he didn't speak any English at all. It was all Spanish.
But he'd been doing werewolves forever and ever, so when he had to come and get me, between him and Michelle Bauer, I finally did get killed in a Fred, Olen, Ray film. But he killed me a lot, actually, in the early days, Terminal Force and a couple of those others.
You cut your head off in Owning Fear?
Yeah. In fact, this is an interesting story. In Haunting Fear, I had a spoiler alert, but Delia Shepard again, and Brink Stevens, she cuts my head off at the end, so I had to go and have a fake head made, which is like a full-on like plaster Paris thing that they make for your face, and they built a head for me. And after the film was over, Fred, in lieu of pay, gave me the head to keep. So I put it on a pike and put it on the passenger seat so I could get in the carpool lane. You know? And then one day I went in for a meeting, and when I came out, people were standing around looking at my car and kind of moaning, and I noticed that my head was melting in the heat in the car, and everybody's watching. And it's very weird to walk out of a room and look at your own face melting in front of you. That was an experience, a nightmare for a long time. I think the reason Fred and I hit it off so early is we just had a similar offbeat sense of humor, and Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers to this day is the funniest film I think I've ever been involved in, and it's all because of Fred. Half of the script were lines that he would throw at me at the moment. Say this, say that, say the other, remember? And there's just one. If you could look at a script and then look at the film, be two different things, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Great times, just wonderful times.
Anything else, Jason?
Well, just to say thank you guys so much. This has been a pleasure. Let's give it up for Fred, Olen, Ray, Jay Richardson, and that fedora.